Good evening, everyone. Time for another silver update. This is the 4-hour chart of silver provided by netdania.com. You can click on the link below. And you can see that today we kind of ran about 3/4 of the way back to that test. We're watching this gap area very closely. You can see that this gap to be filled runs from about high 24.90 or so to about 26.80 or 26.70. So it's about $1.75 to $2 gap. You can see that we corrected about $2 from our break in to that gap and then down to support, and now we're doing a retest. So that's a very key area we want to watch. If we get through that gap anytime soon, then of course there's going to be a lot of overhead resistance we hit when we get to the top of that channel. So we may do some backing and filling once we're into that. The sell-off that we got right here was an attempt to run through it, but it failed. That coincided with some news items, but I don't think the news is really that important. We've got a lot of news going on with Syria, and the markets seem to be reacting in an expected form. We see when the war off story is going, we see the stock market rally and silver and gold kind of sell off. Then when we get the war is on story, which we had now with Boehner coming on and signing onto this thing, then we get a sell-off in stocks and a rally in gold and silver. So that's to be expected. That's kind of the way the markets are reacting to that piece of news. Now, if we pull out to the daily, we can see that we're somewhat in an overbought condition on the daily MACD. Now, that is not nearly as overbought as we were with the 48.50 run that we had back in May of 2011. That was all the way up to a +3. You can see we're almost up to a +1. So there's still quite a bit of room to run before we're in an extremely overbought condition, but then again, it could correct from here. Now, if we go out to the weekly, we can see that we're nowhere near an overbought condition on the weekly. We are running at a very sharp slope towards the zero line, sharper than we did here, the 2008 bottom, but you can see the result. Once we did cross that zero line and went into positive territory, we stayed positive for quite some time, and that resulted in a steady rally from about 8.50 to a good double, really, $17. So it doubled. Then it did some backing and filling, and we got that blast off where we got nearly a tripling of the price again, and that's when we went to that overbought condition. So we're definitely not in an overbought condition. We're still actually in an oversold condition on the weekly, although we're in a short-term overbought condition on the daily. So that's what we're going to be watching. You can see that 26 level is very interesting because there's so much resistance in the sense that that was the area that was tested many, many times on the way down, and it bounced off it very sharply. You can see how sharp the bounces were off of that 26 until finally it was penetrated to the downside. So that's what we're going to be testing on the upside, and that's about halfway through that gap that we're looking at recently. So we're going to be spending the rest of the time on silver in scripture. Now, this may turn out to be a number of updates to cover the topic and thoroughly, so it'll just run as many as it takes. So for those of you who are interested in the history or Christians or interested in the Bible, go ahead and continue to follow. For those of you that are upset by this, then you should probably just go ahead and tune out. So we're going to start with the what is called in, and this is all going to be pulled from the King James Bible. That's a long drawn out thing I'm not going to go into, but that is considered, in my mind and many others, the only real Bible that we have. So The thing we want to look at when we're looking at the King James Bible, and you can use a Strong's Concordance, that's what I did. There's an online Strong's Concordance, and you can search using that. You just look up a word, and you can see that we looked up the word silver, and it occurs 320 times in 282 verses. So a large number of occurrences. Now, the thing you look for first when you're looking for a topic or a word or something that you're trying to get at the meaning of it is the law of first occurrence. That's very important. You want to look for the first time that the word occurred. And you can see the first occurrence that we get is Genesis 13:2, which states, "And Abram was very rich in cattle, in silver, and in gold." So you'll note there that it was Abram, not Abraham. This is before he was named, the second name, the confirmation of his faith. So the key is going to be, of course, the association with very rich. And you can see you have cattle, you have silver, you have gold. Job was another that was described as very rich in the Old Testament, and it gives the number of flocks that he had. So the sign of wealth clearly in that time was flocks, herds, silver, and gold. Now we're going to get deeper into this story and explanation because there's some key stuff there. So we're going to read that, but I want you to note here that we're talking about weights and measures, and we're going to look at that. So let's read the account here and try to get at the key of this. And that's the entire account here is in Genesis 23. Of course, Sarah had died, and Abraham was looking for a field to bury her. And this is when he was making a deal with the sons of Heth. So I'm going to read some of this. He said, "I'm a stranger and a sojourner with you. Give me a possession for a burying place with you, that I may bury my dead out of my sight." And the children of Heth answered Abraham, saying unto him, "Hearest, my lord, thou art a mighty prince among us." So you can see that he was recognized as a very wealthy man, a prince. "In the choice of our sepulchres bury the dead. None of us shall withhold from thee his sepulchre, but thou mayest bury thy dead." And Abraham stood up and bowed himself to the people of the land, even the children of Heth. And he communed with them, saying, "If it be your mind that I should bury my dead out of my sight, hear me and entreat me to Ephron the son of Zohar, that he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which he hath, which is in the end of his field, for as much money as it is worth, he shall give me for a possession of a burying place among you." And Ephron dwelt among the children of Heth. And Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the audience of the children of Heth, even of all that went in at the gate of his city. And the people that sat in the gate of the city, these were the political power, these were the authorities of the city. That's where they had very important meetings and made decisions. "Nay, my lord, hear me. The field I give thee, and the cave that is therein I give thee in the presence of the sons of my people. I give it, bury thy dead." Abraham bowed himself before the people of the land, and he spake unto Ephron in the audience of the people of the land, saying, "Behold, I will give it thee, but if thou wilt give it, I pray thee, hear me. I will give thee money for the field. Take it of me, and I will bury my dead there." And Ephron answered Abraham, saying, "My lord, hearken unto me. The land is worth 400 shekels of silver." Okay, so this is the key here in this verse. We're talking about money, and then it's clearly understood that the money is shekels of silver. So we want to look at this term shekel. Now, we have the modern use of the term. It's clearly a unit of weight. You can see here the etymology. The Hebrew word for shekel is based on the verbal root for weighing. So the name of the coin actually means weighing. Now, the traditional shekel was anywhere from 9 grams up to 17 grams. We know that 28 grams is in an ounce. So most of the historians agree that it was roughly a half an ounce. So in the case of this field that Abraham purchased, we're talking about 400 shekels, so roughly 200 ounces of silver. And he bought the entire field, which contained this cave that he was going to bury Sarah in. So you can see that he weighed out the silver, and that was described as current money with the merchant. And so that brings us to this issue that comes up about the weighing of the money. That's a term that is used frequently in the Old Testament, and the term is unjust weights and measures. So a lot of people have heard about unjust weights and measures. What they don't understand is that's simply a term about money. So with the law of first occurrence, the word weights, we can see, occurs here in Leviticus 19:36. In the law, just balances, just weights, a just ephah, and a just hin. These are measures of that are used for grain and things like that. So all of these are measurements. And shall ye have, I am the Lord your God, which brought you out of the land of Egypt. And then in Deuteronomy, thou shalt not have in thy bag divers weights, a great and a small. In other words, you're not to have two scales. There's one scale, an accurate scale, and that's what you should use to weigh. A just weight and balance are the Lord's. All the weights of the bag are his work. Proverbs 16:11. Proverbs 20:10. Diverse weights and diverse measures, both of them are alike an abomination to the Lord. Proverbs 20:23. Diverse weights are an abomination unto the Lord, and a false balance is not good. And Micah 6:11, shall I count them pure with the wicked balances and with the bag of deceitful weights. So we can see that when we're talking about silver, we're talking about money. We learn that from the law of first occurrence. When we look at this verse, we find out that silver is described as riches, and then the next occurrence is the purchase of this field. And actually, no, this is the beginning of that story, but the third occurrence is where we get this term shekel, which refers to the weight. So it's very clear that these terms money, weights, and silver, they're all contained here, and they are connected in meaning. It's very clear that silver is money. The way that you determine how much money you have is by weighing it, and it is important that the unit of account, the shekel of weight that it is, be an honest measure, a consistent measure, and there should not be any diversity of scales or changes in the unit of measurement. Now, of course, how does that apply today? Well, we know from the statement here that diverse weights are an abomination. So how does that apply to what we have today, paper money? Well, I can't say for certain, but I would say that the money that we have is not an honest kind of money. It's more like an unjust weight. Now, I'm going to address later when we go further, we do have the term scrip, so there is an implication that there is a type of money that represents gold and silver, but clearly we have here that silver is money. It's also very important that silver was used. That's also something that we see throughout history. Generally, silver tends to be the money of merchants. It's the money of transaction of business, and gold tends to be the money, the riches of kings and the riches of nations, whereas silver tends to be the money that is used in everyday transactions, and of course it's weighed out. So that's very important that the money be honest. Now, the money that we have today, its value changes. Now, we all know the history that the money that we have has been changed over time. You can read the various accounts of how the dollar bill has gone from a silver certificate to a dollar in silver to just the term dollar, and it's not redeemable in anything. So the terms have changed. That would be something similar to having a changing scale of weight, which is referred to as an abomination. So the type of money that we have today is what I would term dishonest money, because its value changes. It's not consistent, and it's not really even money. It could be called scrip or a bill, but the bill itself doesn't represent anything. So we're living in an era where we no longer really use money. We just use a government dictated form of scrip that has no value. So we will continue further on. I wanted to begin with the first occurrences so you could see what the meaning is and how that's going to flesh out further when we especially explore the fact that further on in the future that we find that silver and gold are still used as money, and we'll just go ahead and follow that thread through. So back to the silver chart, we're waiting for a retest of above that 25 price, and we're going to watch and see if we get through that gap in the next few days, and very carefully watch what the reaction of the metals markets is to any war declaration or initiation of war, and what the paper markets do as well. And we'll talk to you next time.